fuck it. Okay. Okay. So, I got back from seeing The Last Jedi last night. Or not Last Jedi, I'm sorry. Rise of Skywalker. And oh my gosh. It is probably the worst Star Wars movie. Even worse than The Last Jedi. This movie, from the outset, is the most janked, horribly written movie I have ever seen. From the outset, when it says that Palpatine is back and he has alerted this galaxy to his presence, why would he do that? What he should have done is just launched all the Star Destroyers in one fell swoop and said, "I'm in charge now, bitches." And he would have won. Instead, he says, "Come at me, everyone." And if you're going to try to defend this by saying, "Oh, well, he was trying to get Rey and Kylo's attention," he could already talk to Kylo in his head, so there's no point in saying Palpatine doing that or announcing it to try to get Kylo's attention. And he could just do the same thing to Rey. He could just force Skype her to get her attention, very easily, mind you. And so, I mean, the opening bit with Kylo isn't that bad. At least he's doing something. He's not just standing there moping or getting his ass kicked by Rey. So, I mean, that's fine. And then we get to, oh god. So we get to whatever planet Rey and the Resistance is on, and we see Rey training. And oh my god, JJ, could you not help yourself and not make her the most broken thing in the Star Wars universe ever to exist? Like, seriously. She is full on floating in midair while also carrying several rocks or hovering multiple stones around her at the exact same time. As far as I was aware, not even Yoda could float himself. Palpatine couldn't even float himself. Are you kidding me? Luke, who was arguably a better Jedi in Return of the Jedi, still had trouble lifting even R2. And this is roughly the same point in time with them. No, actually it's not. Luke had more time. Yes, because Empire and A New Hope were only a few months apart, I think. Yeah. So it's about, actually, yeah, it's about the same time. No, because Rise of Skywalker is a year, I think. I don't know, they didn't specify the time skip. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, then we get to Rey training, which, okay, should have had this back in TLJ, like actual training, not just Luke tickling her with a leaf and being a twat. And so we get another forced Skype call between her and Kylo for some reason. Oh yeah, Kylo is a fan of Vader, is a fanboy of Vader again. Kind of forgot about that in the last movie. You know, where he's obsessed with his grandfather. And I'm sorry, just Rey flying breaks so much stuff, especially later on in the movie where her flying, there are multiple points where her flying in the later on in the movie would be a useful asset to have. But no. Oh, Christ. So we get another Skype call, forced Skype call between Kylo and Rey. And then, oh, actually, I forgot the actual opening scene of the movie is Poe, Finn, Chewie, and some other Resistance members getting some secret message from a spy in the First Order. And it's, the initial escape is fine when they're weaving through ice caverns and avoiding the First Order there. It's when they start light skip jumping, which, oh my god. Just, no, JJ. No. You can't do that. You cannot just bounce in and out of hyperspace within Star Wars. You can't do that. That is the equivalent of just veering off a highway at any given point without an exit ramp. And then veering right back onto it with no exit ramp. Like, literally, you can't do that within the universe. I know JJ says you can, but you can't. Like, hyperspace lanes don't end at the planet, like on the planet. They end off planet, so you don't crash into shit. Like, what they're doing where they're zipping on and off planets in between buildings, you can't do that. The hyperspace systems don't allow that to happen. They don't work while you're on planets. For the same reason Han gave back in A New Hope. Or Empire. When they're trying to weave in and out of the asteroid field. And 3PO says, why don't we just jump to hyperspace? And Han says something along the lines of, we can't because the asteroids are in the way. Well, oh my god, JJ. He's trying to be, oh look, this is a really cool chase scene. The problem being, if your chase scene doesn't make sense within the universe, it is a terrible chase scene. Like, flat out. And it is a bad chase scene. Okay, then we move on and we get Leia, or the stuff with Kylo and Palpatine where Palpatine says, join me. And then we get to Rey, who's doing the training and flying, because, you know, Rey's the best that ever was, and no one can ever be better than her. You know, heaven forbid she actually has to work for her skills. So, then the Millennium Falcon gets back, and it's on fire. So, you know, great job, JJ, respecting that ship that is a fan favorite. Great job. And then, you know, it's always fun when characters in universe acknowledge that Rey is the best at everything. Because Poe says, and I quote, "We need you out there. You're our best fighter." This isn't on the ground, mind you. This is in space. So yes, Poe actively acknowledges that Rey is the best at whatever she does. Great writing there, boy. Writing there, guys. So then we move on to her being mopey about not earning Luke's lightsaber, which, okay, but you never show. Anyway. And then we go on to them needing to find the MacGuffin, or to find the MacGuffin. This Sith Wayfinder, which looks like a holocron, but it's not a holocron because, you know, fuck the EU. And so to find Palpatine, they have to find the not holocron. So they could go and go and fight Palpatine. They only have 16 hours. Okay. So, of course, Luke just happened to be searching for this exact same thing, because for some reason he thought that Palpatine was still alive. Okay. I don't know why he would think that. Well, I failed that. I don't know why he would think that Palpatine was alive, because he saw Palpatine get thrown down a hole, and then explode, and then the Death Star exploded. So there's no way why he should think that Palpatine is alive. Ugh, this movie is stupid. So they go to Desert Planet number 4, where Rey gets asked by a little alien girl what's her name, and she says, "I'm just Rey." Aww. So it looks like she's accepted that she was a nobody. And then the First Order finds them, but they're saved by Lando. Now, I will say, thankfully, this movie didn't fuck over Lando. Thankfully, they left him mostly intact. They didn't make him horny for a robot. They didn't make the only other black character in the movie his child. Not Poe, another character, another black character that shows up. That's I guess technically a main character or main side character. She becomes important at the end of the movie for no implicit reason, other than she was there. And oh well, whoops. So they then get a hint from Lando where they need to go, which is to find Ochi. Why they called him Ochi, I will never know. They could not have come up with a better name for this person. But they have to go and find Ochi's ship to find the MacGuffin knife so they can go get Creamy Sheev. So they go and find this ship, and they step right on the most obvious trap or danger spot I have ever seen in any movie. So the desert all around them is, you know, a desert. There's giant pools of just black sand in the middle of the desert that you don't see on the approach to the ship, to the area where the ship is. But as soon as they get there, oh, it's there. If it was me, I wouldn't step on the black sand. So, you know, because the black sand is, you know, the big bad danger zone, everyone steps on it and they all sink into the sand. And, you know, everyone, they, you know, surprise, no one actually dies. And so Rey, Poe, Finn, Chewie, and 3PO are all stuck in a worm cave underneath the ground. They're trying to find their way out, and they come across the worm that dug the caves. Poe, in the correct being the correct one again, is about to kill it because the thing is ticked off and is about to kill them. But Rey somehow, of course, because Rey's perfect and she can never fail, walks up to the snake thing and heals the snake thing with a quote-unquote transfer of force. That is not how the force works. 1. In episode 4, Obi-Wan explicitly states that the force is in everything. Surrounds us, binds us. 2, you can't transfer the force. 3, yes, force healing did exist in the EU, but not like that. You couldn't heal major wounds in the way that they're insinuating you could. It was basically you meditated for a long time and you increased your healing, but it took a long time to do. So, they find the dagger because, Ochi fell in the same stupid trap as Rey and Co. did somehow. Okay. Apparently that worm is a really good hunter because everyone in this world is completely stupid. And so they find the dagger, they go to Ochi's ship, they turn it on, or they go to Ochi's ship and Rey's like, I remember this ship. Because hint hint, it's the ship that dropped her off on Jakku. So excuse me, sorry. So they get into the ship, they turn it on, which surprisingly no one scavenges thing after what, 20 years at the least, because 20 to 30 years maybe, which fine. Like, I mean, if they want to say the ship still works after that amount of time, I mean, that's unlikely, especially with it sitting in the middle of a desert, having to deal with all, and there's like shit in, like there's sand and crap in the ship. You can see it on the like the entry plank when they drop it down. So call me doubtful that that ship would actually be in a functioning way. Because heaven forbid they actually, run back to the Falcon, because they're concerned they'll get caught, because they'll be at the Falcon. Guys, you were never concerned about being caught before, and besides, you admit that you've got Rey with you, who you've admitted is the best fighter that they have. So I'm pretty sure you'll be fine. So Rey stares off into the distance and says, I'll be right back. And then we get the scene from the trailer, and then they send Chewie out to go get her for some reason, as opposed to Chewie just yelling, hey, we're ready, let's go. He walks out to her. And then we get the scene from the trailer, which is really, just a stupid in context of the incomplete context. Because at this point, Palpatine has told Kylo to kill Rey, but Kylo doesn't want to kill Rey. He wants her to join him so they can, betray the Emperor. Because that worked out so well for you the last few times you've tried it, Kylo. So, Kylo's brilliant plan is he's just going to charge full on at her in his spaceship so he can get her to join him. As opposed to, killing her. Which, if she didn't jump out of the way, which, come on, it's Rey. Of course she's not going to die. They don't have the balls to do that. Jumps out of the way and then destroys Kylo's ship. Which, Kylo should have died when that thing exploded. But nope, he walks out of there. Nothing wrong with him at all. Not limping. No blood. No nothing. He just walks out of there just as fine as the day he was born. Seriously. And so Chewie gets captured by the Knights of Ren and the Stormtroopers. Oh yeah, the Knights of Ren are in this movie. Didn't really bother mentioning them because they do absolutely nothing. They just walk around and look menacing, I guess. I mean, they kind of do something at the very end. But other than that and catching Chewie, they just walk around menacingly the entire movie. That's it. So, there's no point in mentioning them being in the movie. So, the transport ship that has Chewie and the dagger, because Chewie picked up the dagger when they fell into the sand pit, or the snake pit, Rey uses the Force to try to stop she tries to force pull the transport down, and Kylo tries to let force pull the transport away from Rey. So they're doing this tug of war, and then suddenly, somehow, Rey uses Force Lightning. One of the highest tier dark side abilities that only 2 characters in the entire movie series have ever been shown to do. Palpatine and Dooku. Both are some of the strongest Sith we have ever encountered. The only reason Vader cannot do lightning is because it would kill him. Vader could do lightning. The problem is his suit and all his rebuilt limbs. Because they're metal, it would kill him if he would hurt himself. So Vader just couldn't do Force Lightning. But he had other methods of fighting. So Rey, once again, shows that she is the most perfect character that ever existed within the within the story of Star Wars. She Force Lightnings the transport, and as far as she's aware, she kills Chewie! Which, by the way, I just about pissed myself laughing out loud in the theater. And I yelled, Chewie, no! Because I could not fucking help myself. My God. And so, now everyone is all sad because Chewie is dead, right? Nope, the next scene they tell you, nope, Chewie's fine. Because they wouldn't have the balls to actually fake you out until the end of the movie. So, they find out that 3PO, who can read the dagger but can't speak it, because for some reason they have made Sith an outlawed language, which Sith, within the context of Star Wars, does not mean does not only mean a series of dark side Force users. Sith were a race of people that the Sith we now know took over. Like, literally, there was a race of people called the Sith. They were red-skinned, had smallish horns on their foreheads, smallish growths on their chins, and their jawlines that would give it the appearance of a beard. The Sith weren't actual people. They weren't just Force users. Yes, they were all heavily Force wielders, but that was ancillary to the fact that they were a species called the Sith. The Sith already pre-existed the Sith Empire. The Sith Empire, with the group that became the Sith Empire, found the Sith people and kind of, like, assimilated them and took on that whole, like, culture, and then expanded it out into the rest of the Sith Empire. That's where the name Sith comes from, not dark side. Now, it has become where dark side means, or Sith means dark side Force user, but that was not the initial, like, for a millennia, the Jedi ignored the Sith people because they weren't a danger to the universe. They didn't do anything. They wanted to be left alone. So outlawing a Sith language because it's evil or whatnot is nonsense. And so to get 3PO to be able to read this forbidden Sith language, which is really stupid, they have to go find a droid hacker to force 3PO to read the language. But if he reads the language, it will erase his memory. And oh no! But Chewie, you say, 3PO's a droid. Wouldn't they have a backup? And to that I say, they bring that plot point up, and they say, oh, the only one who backs up 3PO's memory is R2, but for some reason R2's memory, which lasted since the Clone Wars, mind you, and he still had Leia's message to Obi-Wan in him. You know, the "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope." Yeah, that whole bit. Yeah, that was still in him. So don't tell me that R2's memory banks are fucked or are unreliable. And so 3PO says goodbye and says goodbye to all his friends, which, yeah, pretty sure he wasn't talking about Rey, Poe, and Finn. Well, I'd like to think that's what he was saying, that he wasn't talking about those three chuckle fucks. He was actually thinking of Luke, Leia, and Han. His eyes turn red. He reads out the Sith language in a deep, menacing voice, because, you know, the Sith are bad, everyone. Really gotta ram that point on, or ram that point home that the Sith are bad. And 3PO's memory is wiped. So sad. And then they turn into a joke 2 seconds later when 3PO wakes back up, does his whole little, "Hello, I am C-3PO, human-cyborg relations." And Poe goes, "That's going to be a problem." After they find out that Chewie is alive, mind you, because the First Order shows up on the planet they're on. And they go, "Oh, they must know where we're going, so that means Chewie's alive." So, you know, this is all of 10 minutes into the movie, or after they think Chewie has died. So, you know, and within the context of, like, time span within the movie, it's probably been an hour. Like, not even. Because remember, they only have 16 hours from the start of the movie to stop Palpatine, or else Palpatine will destroy the universe. So this is only like an hour, maybe. So for an hour, they thought Chewie was dead. Yeah, real big emotional investment there, guys. Great job. So, they'll decide that they're going to go save Chewie. And they do so because an old friend of Poe's, which for some reason they try to give him a love interest in this movie, and it's really terribly done because it comes the fuck out of nowhere, like, absolutely out of nowhere. And, she has a magic chip that will let them get onto Kylo's ship. And she gives it to Poe, even though she hates Poe because Poe left her with a massive debt because he used to be a spice trader or a spice runner, which is basically like a drug dealer within the universe of Star Wars. Or a drug runner, I should say. And instead of being really pissed off and killing Poe, which he tries to do right away when they first run into her, instead, Rey asks her nicely, and she says, "Okay, I'll help." Once again, Rey doesn't need anyone; she can just do it all herself. But okay. So, oh, and actually, I forgot a really important part because this is going to be important in just a minute. So when they're on the desert planet, Kylo Force Skypes Rey. And he lunges at her and grabs at her. Grabs a necklace that the little girl that asked Rey her name gave her. And somehow, on God's green earth, JJ thought it was a cool idea to allow the Force to transfer matter. That is not how the Force works, you moron. You cannot just transfer matter. It is not magic from Harry Potter. And even in Harry Potter, they have a better explanation as to why wizards can do that. In Harry Potter, wizards can conjure something out of thin air. But the logic with that is they have to know where that object is in the first place. And the object has to exist in the first place. They can't just go, I want a cup and make a random cup appear out of nowhere. No. If they make a cup appear out of nowhere, basically it's their product, it's their object. They know they basically are just pulling it out of the cupboard without pulling it out of the cupboard. Physically. In Star Wars, apparently the Force can just pull shit out of thin air for no reason. And that's how they find them on the desert planet. Now, they're on this planet now back to rescuing Chewie. So they fly up to to Kylo's ship. They sneak on board. They land Ochi's ship that they've got. Two stormtroopers walk up to the ship, and instead of letting the troopers get onto the ship and killing them on the ship, they just kill them in the hangar. Because, having the disguises wouldn't be useful at all. So they sneak through the ship, are looking for Chewie, killing stormtroopers as they go. When they run into two stormtroopers and Rey doing the what's the word I'm looking for here? Strongest use of the Force suggestion Force suggestion that I have ever seen to tell them where, to one, convince the troopers that they're supposed to be there, two, to tell them where, and two, to tell them where Chewie is. They do that, and then Rey decides that she's going to go get the dagger, because, Kylo couldn't have actually read the dagger by now. Hint, or surprise, surprise, he did. And so she goes and gets the dagger, and then once again, Kylo and her force Skype for some stupid reason. And then they have a lightsaber fight. It is one of the worst, and there's a far worse lightsaber fight later on, but it is one of the worst lightsaber fights in the series. Once again, we have matter from both sides that both people aren't even touching now. It just happens to be in the vicinity of them. And somehow it is transferring between both sides. And if that's not what was going on, that's as hella sure what they were implying. If they were just trying to say, like, oh, they could kind of see it happening, which doesn't make any sense because they can't see where they are at all until they magically can. Because, and they explicitly say that Kylo can't see where Rey is, because Kylo asks her, where are you? And the only reason he finds out where she is because they hit the stand that Vader's melted helmet is standing on in the middle of Kylo's room, and that falls to the ground. Somehow Kylo can see it, and he goes, that's where you are, huh? And so he locks down the ship. Oh my god, this movie. And so they are trying to get out, and all while Rey and Kylo are having their quote unquote fight, Finn and Poe have rescued Chewie, and they're trying to get out, and so they're just running through the hallways of the Star Destroyer, shooting stormtroopers as they go along. And I will say one thing: they actually get caught. At least they let that happen. They let them get caught. Okay. So, Hux and 3 stormtroopers take them off to go and execute them. And then the stormtroopers, for whatever reason, think it's a good idea when Hux says, no, I want to do it. Gives them the blasters. Or gives him a blaster. And then he turns around and shoots the stormtroopers. Because, surprise, surprise, Hux is the traitor. Which, okay. So Hux takes them back to the Millennium Falcon. They ask him, why are you doing this? And he says, and I quote, I don't care if you win, I just want Kylo to lose. Which, okay. Granted, that is better than him suddenly doing a 180 and being a good guy. After, the last 2 movies he was so fired up to kill them. But for him to be that petty of a human being is retarded to no end. Like, oh my god. I have not seen that petty of a human being ever. Like, oh my god. And so before they leave, he tells them to shoot him in the arm so he looks good. Finn proceeds to shoot him in the leg, and they leave. And, well, they fly out of the hangar. So, Rey runs to where Ochi's ship was. But then Kylo flies in, lands and walks over and says, "Join me again." Rey is at the edge between of the. Rey has backed herself up to the edge of the hangar door that leads out into the open air, and she's standing there, and she's trying to figure out what to do because she doesn't want to, so she doesn't have to join Kylo. And then the Finn and Poe and everyone in the Millennium Falcon flies in to rescue her. So, question. Why couldn't Rey just fly herself out of the ship? No, seriously. We saw her flying in the beginning of the movie and floating herself with the Force. Why couldn't Rey just float herself down to the planet? Or why did she have to jump? Why couldn't she not just float herself onto the Millennium Falcon's entry gantry? Oh, right, because, this movie has no internal consistency. So, we now make our way to Endor, where we run into a group of ex-stormtroopers like Finn that apparently all did the same thing happened to him. Happened to them, where they just their brainwashing turned off, because that's how brainwashing works. And they have just been living there on Endor. And so, well, okay. Actually, first, mind you, any other really, great respecting the original stuff, JJ. They crash land the Millennium Falcon. They crash land the Millennium Falcon. Just, oh my god, JJ. And so, Rey walked, so they take the dagger, and so this is how the dagger works to find the MacGuffin. You hold the dagger up, line it up with how the wreckage of the Death Star is, and then you pull this little, extendable compass thing out of the bottom of the dagger, of the hilt of the dagger. And that points to exactly where the Wayfinder thing is. So instead of just saying, hey, it's right here, you have to go through all this nonsense. And so Rey decides she's got to go get it right. Got to go get that thing right then and now. And the group of ex-stormtroopers on the planet say, we can't do it right now. Look at the water is too rough. So Rey decides to go and do it herself. So she can just pilot this boat thing, no problem, even though she's never done it before. And this isn't like piloting a ship, like a actual just a spaceship of any sort. This has a whole different control setup to any ship we've ever seen before. And yet somehow she can do it perfectly fine because she's Rey. So, another problem. Why didn't she just fly her ass over to the ship? Or to the wreckage? Why not? She was flying earlier in the movie, and there was... apparently she had been doing that for a while. No, they just needed the epic shot of her piloting this thing across the giant waves. So, she gets to the Death Star, And another point where she could have just flown her ass up there. No, she's climbing over everything. Because, you know, they established in The Force Awakens that she climbed all this stuff all the time when she was scavenging from ships. So she's a good climber. So, man, this movie's stupid. So she's wandering through the Death Star, and she comes upon the throne room. How this piece of the wreckage wasn't destroyed completely. Oh, right, I know why it wasn't completely destroyed. Because JJ is desperately going, look, you guys remember this movie you like, right? Well, now it's here in my movie, so that means you like it too, right? My God, the amount of desperate, like, it was in this movie, so you like this, so now it's here, so you like this movie too, right, guys? Right? Is sad beyond belief. So Rey walks into the throne room, and a door opens, which there's no way in hell that door should open by itself. There is no way there's still power on the Death Star at all. And so she goes into this door and finds a dark side room where... So, you remember in Empire how Luke had to face that visage of Vader, and when he killed it, it had his face in it, symbolizing the fact that there was a Skywalker in Luke, or in Vader, hinting at the fact that Vader was Luke's father? You know how they were subtle with that up until they actually, like, said it at the end of the movie, but it was a good setup and a subtle nod? Good foreshadowing? Yeah, fuck that in this movie. Evil Rey just says, "Don't be afraid of yourself," and then hisses at her. Like, could you be more cartoonishly evil? Like, seriously. So, Rey gets the Wayfinder, and then Kylo shows up and takes it from her and destroys it. So, you know, that was completely pointless. And so, now they're having a lightsaber fight, and this is the worst, the single worst lightsaber duel in the entire franchise. Star Wars kid. You know, the kid with the broom swinging the broom around that everyone photoshopped in lightsaber blades onto it. That was a better lightsaber fight than this fight in the movie. Like, no joke. Fans just whacking each other with fake lightsabers have had better coordination and better choreography in lightsaber fights than this fight in this movie. And you can tell this is also the point where they actually ran out of footage from that they didn't use in TFA in The Last Jedi of Leia, because this is also the point where suddenly Leia decides that the only way to reach Ben is for her to do the Force Skype thing to Ben and die. Which, at least in this movie, they didn't destroy Leia, but that's only because they had nothing they could use to do that with to her. Now, I love Carrie Fisher and I miss her, but thank God she's not alive for them to destroy her the way they did Luke. Because, I mean, that was the only saving grace with her, is that they had such little footage of Leia to actually work with. So, yeah, so Leia dies, which, that's fine, but, I mean, they should have just time skipped ahead and had Leia pass on off screen, and they, like, have the movie start up at her funeral. That's where the movie should have started. Leia has died. the Resistance uh, is in disarray because they've yet to like fully figure out what to do now that Leia is gone. Like, that's just what should have happened. It would have been more respectful to Carrie Fisher. Like, seriously. So, because Leia force Skypes Kylo, that distracts him long enough for Rey to stab him with his lightsaber. Now, mind you, Kylo had won the fight. Like, surprisingly, Kylo actually won a fight against Rey. Until he got distracted, and then Rey stabs him. So, both Kylo and Rey feel that Leia has died, and they're both very sad. And some reason, Rey decides that she's going to heal Kylo, even though the wound he sustained actually isn't that bad of a wound. He got stabbed through the gut and it went through him into the back, not his chest, nothing like. And also, lightsaber wounds cauterize, so he won't bleed out. Like, that's kind of the whole, like, that's one of the reasons Lucas designed lightsabers the way he did, so there wouldn't be any blood in Star Wars. But, you know, for some reason, you're still seeing blood and stuff coming out of wounds in this movie, even though you shouldn't see wounds at all from or blood from any wound in this movie, because guess what? Blaster bolts and lightsabers don't leave blood. They cauterize the wound when they pass through. But, you know, they gotta make sure that you know that the characters are hurt, guys. So, Rey decides to heal Kylo for some reason, and then she takes his ship and flies away. And then, Kylo is standing there moping on the wreckage of the Death Star. And then Han shows up. Thankfully, they did not make Han a Force Ghost. He is just a memory, but for some reason they gotta actually have him standing there, because, you know, they're desperate. And so, Kylo decides to turn away from the dark side and embrace the light side, and he throws his lightsaber into the ocean. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. Well, we'll come back to that later. And so, Rey goes to the same island that, so Rey, Finn, and Chewie all get back to the Resistance base, and they find out that Leia has died. And I will say, Chewie actually had a good emotional scene, and it made sense. You did good on that one, JJ. At least you let Chewie have his moment where he's actually upset that someone he knows and cares about died. Good. You didn't make it into a joke. You let it hang there, and you let Chewie be upset. Good. Okay. So, Rey goes to the same island that Luke secluded himself on because she's upset because she doesn't want to turn to the dark side and yada yada yada. And she's burning Kylo's ship. She takes Luke's lightsaber and throws it into the bonfire. And then Luke reaches out of the bonfire, catches his lightsaber, and stops it from going in. Yes, everyone. As if Yoda hitting Luke on the head in TLJ wasn't bad enough, they doubled down and acknowledged that yes, Force ghosts can affect the world around them. No, JJ, they can't. Force ghosts are not able to interact with the world around them. They are merely there to give guidance and advice. They cannot actually affect the world around them outside of talking to a person. And granted, it's not even shown whether or not anyone else but them can, but the person they're talking to can see them. But fuck it, we need Luke having a cool one-liner. So he walks out of the fire and says, "That's not how you treat a lightsaber." This coming from the man that in just the last movie chucked the lightsaber over his shoulder and walked away. You know, his father's lightsaber. You know, something that should, have a lot of emotional connection to. Nah, he just chucks it over his shoulder. So, he says, he gives her a pep talk, says that he was wrong. Tells her that she already has the Wayfinder. She doesn't need the one that Kylo broke, because, remember, she took Kylo's ship, and for some reason, Kylo still had the Wayfinder in his ship. So she goes and takes it, and somehow it didn't get destroyed in the fire. Lucky enough for her. And and Luke raises his X-Wing out of the water, and she flies off whatever the fuck the planet's name is. So to everyone who is defending in TLJ that Luke couldn't get to Crate because his X-Wing didn't work, well, guess what? This movie says yes, it does. So yeah, another reason TLJ was stupid, or the ending of TLJ was just completely horrible. So she flies off into the sun to go confront Palpatine. And on her way there, she sends a signal out to the Resistance so that way they can follow her to go fight Palpatine too. So they all gear up. Everyone goes and chases after Rey, and it's an inspiring scene. Oh, and while on the planet Luke had hermited himself away on, Luke also gave Rey Leia's lightsaber for some reason. Because, this was never mentioned before. But yeah, Leia has a lightsaber, so that explains everything as to why she could do everything she did in TLJ. That man, great patchwork there, JJ. You really fixed that problem of her Mary Poppinsing her ass back into the ship out of the coldness of space. So they all gear up to go and stop the. So this is the Rebels' plan, or the Resistance's plan. They're going to stop the ship. They're going to stop the ships from leaving orbit by destroying their navigation beacon. Okay, that's not a bad idea. I could see how that could possibly make sense. But then they say that ships' shields can't activate. The reason they're doing this is because the ships cannot activate their shields in orbit, or not in orbit, in atmosphere. Okay, when was that ever established that that's how shields work in Star Wars? Oh, wait. It doesn't. We had... That's not how shields work in the universe, but okay, JJ. So, everyone flies in, and they're going to send a ground force to take out the navigation beacon, while the rest of the air support keeps them safe, and they all defend them while they try to fight or take out the navigation beacon. So they get there, and the First Order figures out very quickly what they're trying to do, and they switch the navigation beacon from like the thing that will the head navigation. They switch it from the navigation beacon to the head capital ship. So they actually, have show that the First Order is somewhat competent when it comes to when Hux isn't in charge. Or Kylo. So the rebels change their plan, and they all attack the capital ship en masse. The ground troops transport lands. The Lee General says, jam their speeders. One of the First Order officers says they're not using speeders. And then we get the horses. And then the group of stormtroopers that were on Endor, along with Poe, pop out of the transport on the horses that the ex-stormtroopers were all riding. So then we get a honest-to-God scene in Star Wars of horses on top of a Star Destroyer in high atmosphere fighting stormtroopers. My God. So, and while the rebels on Exodrin, or whatever the hell the planet's name is, that they're at the moment, are doing this, they sent Chewie and Lando out into charted space to just send out a signal saying, come to these coordinates and help us. So while that attack is going on, Rey goes down and confronts Palpatine. And Palpatine is being puppeted around on this robot arm because, they can't actually try to make him look intimidating. Instead they make him look completely and totally retarded and just ridiculous. And so Palpatine is telling Rey that she'll kill him and then he'll invade her body, and that she will lead the Sith, or he will lead the Sith in her body. Yada 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 yada. So while they're having this face-off, Kylo lands on the planet. He's rushing in, and he gets stopped by the Knights of Ren. Now, mind you, he doesn't have his lightsaber anymore. He threw that into the ocean back on Endor. So he starts getting his ass kicked by the Knights of Ren. Because, it'd be great if he actually had a weapon rather than just a blaster. But, no, he threw his way. So, Rey lifts her lightsaber above her head, brings it back behind her to bring back the killing blow on Palpatine, when suddenly the lightsaber disappears from her hand because she sent it to Kylo because they force Skyped in the background, and she gave Kylo Luke's lightsaber, faking out Palpatine. And so Kylo kills all the Knights of Ren, and Palpatine force attacks Rey and knocks her out for momentarily, and then Ben shows up, or Kylo shows up to help her. And now while that's all going on, the rebels, or the resistance, are working on destroying the navigation beacon on the main ship of the main capital Star Destroyer ship. Oh yes, I forgot to mention, these Star Destroyers all have a Death Star gun strapped to the bottom of them. Yes. Now, the weapon that was the size of a small moon, that took umpteen amount of kyber, like, the Death Star was powered by kyber crystals, like the same thing that powers lightsabers, and they needed a lot of kyber crystals, like so many they nearly drained the planet Ilum, which is where kyber crystals come from in the original movies. Like, that's how, just to build the 2 Death Stars that they had. No. Now those are just strapped to the bottom of Star Destroyers. So, the rebels are working on destroying the navigation beacon, and they do it. And then Poe and the leader of the other stormtroopers that all defected go and try to tell everyone else to go. We'll catch up. And they go to destroy the bridge of the capital ship with the guns. And during all this, the rebels are being all the I got the hiccups. Resistance members are getting very quickly killed and shot out of the sky. The rebels are losing, or the whatever rebels are losing all hope, when suddenly Lando shows back up with literally every ship in the galaxy. Like, oh my goodness. And of course the Empire, the Last Order goes, where did they get all those ships from? They don't have a navy. And another First Order officer goes, that's not a navy, that's just people. Because subtlety is a stick that they're beating you over the head with in this movie. Like, oh my good lord. So they all start actually destroying all the ships. Poe realizes that Finn didn't get off the Star Destroyer, goes to try and save him, and then Lando in the Millennium Falcon swoops in and saves them. That's fine. That's a Lando thing to do. That's fine. Perfectly fine with that. At least, once again, they didn't destroy Lando in this movie. They left him pretty much where he began, and that's not a bad thing. In this movie, anyway, not like began as a character in total. So, in the midst of all this, or during all that happening, they Rey and Kylo are confronting Papa Palpatine. He force pulls them together and then sucks the life force out of them. Yep, he sucks the life force out of them, turning himself young again, because apparently they are two halves of something called a Force Dyad, which is what Palpatine has been trying to do all along, which is what he was trying to do with Anakin, which that has been his whole plan all along, so he could have everlasting life. Man, this movie is stupid. So, he regains his youth, and then launches a force lightning bolt so large into the sky that it spreads out and disables every ship the Resistance has brought with them. Every single ship, causing them to plummet out of the sky. Oh, and Kylo tried to get up and stop and fight, but he just got yeeted off the into a hole. So while Palpatine is force lightninging the sky, my God. Basically what it is that scene from Revenge of the Sith where he's shouting unlimited power, but instead of shouting it at Mace Windu or Samuel Jackson, he's screaming it at the sky. So Rey gets up to confront him again. He tries to force lightning her, and she stops him with a lightsaber. You know, mind you, this is the same force lightning that he, not 2 seconds ago, was using to knock the ships out of the sky. So yeah. So she force pulls the other, she pulls out her second lightsaber, double blocks, and then reflects all the lightning back onto Palpatine, killing him. Because, you know, he couldn't just stop force lightning the entire time and, you know, not kill himself. But no, that'd be silly. And so Palpatine dies, a massive force wave explodes out of him, killing all the Sith, like, loyalists that are there, that are standing there cheering for Rey to be their new Empress. Yeah, a massive force wave goes out, destroying the area around them, and killing everyone in the area, except for Rey. And she's perfectly fine. She gets up, stumbles a few feet, and then dies. Because she forced too much, and now she's dead. Oh no. Until Kylo climbs out of the pit, walks over to her, and force heals her. Yes, now Kylo can just use the Force whatevers, because the movie says he can do it too, guys. See? Rey's not broken. She's not overpowered. Kylo can do it too, everyone. That doesn't make it better. That makes it worse. Oh my God. And so we have everyone cheering and whooping and yelling because they stopped all the Death Star fleet, and now they're all heading back to their home. So all the rebels come back to the rebel base. For some fucking reason, Maz Kanata has Han's either Han or Chewie's uh, uh, Medal of Valor from the end of A New Hope, you know, the one they got. It's like, so why the hell does she have that? Like, at all? Then we cut back to Tatooine with Rey at Luke's aunt and uncle's home, which, surprisingly, that thing is held up really, really well for 70 years. Like, it is amazing how well off on a desert planet that is not completely covered in sand. And so she wraps up Luke's lightsaber, wraps up Luke and Leia's lightsabers, and buries them in a touching ceremony to lay Luke and Leia to rest. And as she looks off into the sunset, she sees the Force ghosts of Luke and Leia standing there, watching over her, when suddenly some little old lady who's just walking around in the desert, who probably lives there, and is like, "What are you doing at my home, young lady? Why are you digging in my yard?" Asks her what her name is, and she looks at her and says, Rey Skywalker. Fuck this movie. Like, the only good thing about this movie is that now I don't have to care about Star Wars at all. I can just ignore it from here on out. The only two Star Wars things I am even remotely looking forward to is season 6 or it's the final season of Clone Wars, because that was already done and well written before Disney even bought Star Wars, so they can't fuck that up. All that needed to be done was they needed to finalize a bunch of animation and some other minor things to it. It was almost finished, they just never put it out. And once The Mandalorian has gotten some more episodes under it, I'll watch that in its entirety. I'm not going to say much about it right now because it's only its first season, and even in Clone Wars and Rebels both had rocky first seasons. So let that finish before you give it its final final judgment. But oh my god, this movie. Oh yeah, actually, one funny part of the movie, when they're trying to figure out what to do how to stop Palpatine, when they're making the battle plan once they get to the planet with all the Star Destroyers, they actually have a dude say, "Why don't we just pull a Holdo?" The only smart guy in the room there, mind you. And Poe goes, "No, we can't do that. That was a 1 in a million." It's like, man, Ryan, you really destroyed the Star Wars universe by having that stupid scene in The Last Jedi. Oh my Christ, that movie is just so bad. Oh, thank you all for sitting and listening to me rant about plot by plot point of Rise of Skywalker. And I really hope that this movie does poorly enough that Disney learned the lesson and they just stop making main series movies. Just stick to spin-offs, because I mean, Rogue One was half decent. Rogue One is the least bad of all the Disney Star Wars movies. Like, that's not a good thing when you can say the least bad of them all is Rogue One. So, well, I thank you everyone and have a good day.